And welcome. Happy Friday, everybody. If you're watching this live. Terrence already with the groovy in the chat. Appreciate it. Trying something a little bit new, so hopefully there won't be any bugs. Giving Melon a try. Melon is a different sort of multi-platform streamer. I've been using Restream. I'm fairly happy with the Restream. I think we've all, if you've been in these streams with me before, you have noticed that Restream has bugged out on me a couple of times. Dungeon Master Masterclass, hey, and Stochastic Agency, you made it. Absolutely, thanks for coming. So I am giving Melon a try to see if it does things any better. I'm sure it will be some things it probably does better, some things it probably doesn't do as well. So apologies in advance if there's any weirdness from me stumbling around how to use a different tool. Oh, I'm a melon baller now, says Terrence. Let me see. Let me show that on the screen. There we go. Wah, 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 melon baller. Yeah, so got that. We'll see how it goes. It's Friday. I think I got a little bit of a mini milestone I passed. I want to say last week. It might even have been the week before, but I went over 1.5K subscribers, went over the 1,500 subscriber mark. So thanks everybody for subscribing. I really appreciate it. It's kind of a, I guess, a small step for man, but a giant step for me. I appreciate that. I don't think I have any other notes. Yeah, I do. I don't think I'll be streaming on Monday. It's President's Day, and I think we're going to try to do something family-oriented. So I will update various locations, but I might not stream next Monday for the holiday, and then I will be going out of town on vacation, so you probably not this coming week, but I guess a week from today, I'll be going on vacation. So there probably won't be I think we're going to be leaving in the morning. I got to check. Pretty sure. So we won't have one of these, and then I'll be off for a week. That's about all the programming notes. So let me switch this to this. I think it's a better view. That's all I got on that note. Let's Terrence, I'll see myself out. Yep. Tip your wait staff. Don't drink and drive. He's here all week. On the hot tab of our OSR, as we are wont to do, I'll just give it a quick refresh. As usual, I do not pre-read any of this stuff. If it shows up that I've read it, it's just because I happen to have been on here earlier in the week and read it. But I don't go through and try to pre-find stuff. Maybe I should. Maybe I should do that, but I don't. Just go through and see what there is. Someone made a point crawl generator for Vaults of Varn. Let's see if they have something free, because that might be cool. Oh, okay, so this is something, this is an actual web app. I'm going to copy and paste this into the chat. Let's see, this is called Varn Atlas. I'm not familiar with Varn, so apologies for that. There we go. All right, there's, let's see. Let's read. So there's a thing we can run here, but we're gonna read the text stuff first, and then we can come back to it. This looks very sort of it gives me a dwarf fortress vibe. Varn, I curse each letter of the name. I curse the blue sand that infiltrates every pore of my body, the creeping sand which each night swallows a little more of the final camp we have erected upon the face of this pitiless azure desolation. Idris Ida Null, Hegemony Cartographer. Instructions. Move the cursor with your mouse or keyboard and interact by clicking or using the spacebar. Press R or click on the top right button to reload the map. Press C or click on the bottom right button to copy the link to the clipboard. Sharing this link will let you share the same map with others. If you click on a location, you can freely move the cursor around without changing the text box. Click again to unlock the cursor. Locking the cursor allows you to click on the dark underlined links in the description box. You can also double-click a location to open the first links. Most provide further useful information about Varn from the SRD, System Reference Document. Make sure to try it in full screen so it is easier to read. And then maybe I would have put the what is this above the instructions, but here it is. This atlas is an in-game artifact, toy, generator, and tool for the science fantasy role-playing game Vaults of Varn. This atlas uses tables and tools from the Vaults of Varn zines, and streamlines their use. My intention is for this to serve as a useful tool in your campaigns, while also being fun to play with. Using the link sharing feature, you will be able to share the same map with other people in your game. And then, yes, some planned features. There's, I guess, some kind of Find Waldo thing. All right. I'm not familiar with Vaults of Varn, but I do love generators and stuff. So let's give this a run. See what happens. We got a white line made with Unity. All right. Holy moly. So here we're looking at, yeah, a whole bunch of stuff. So we can, it looks like once this thing is built, we've got definitely like a sci fantasy, maybe kind of landscape. And just as we're moving the mouse, there's a little cursor. Move the cursor, click to lock. When locked, you can click on links. Double clicking also leads to SRD. All right. So what is that then? That. Oh, I found a corpse. Conditions, centuries old. They were carrying dice decorated with arcane symbols. Who might that be? Who might be dead carrying dice of arcane symbols? Sounds like if your average gamer ended up in this sci-future world. This thing looks like, I don't know, a couple of dots, 4 dots. The never-ceasing azure sands of Varn. What you find in the sand? A broken pistol. And this one looks like a little hill. What you find in the sand? Okay, so these different symbols, I guess, different types of sand. Or I guess they're just denote something in the sand as opposed to these nothingness, which I'm guessing featureless sands. Okay. We've got this, an abandoned city. So the scale, I don't know what the scale is on this, but it must be pretty big. Well, they're not saying what the scale is. What's that over here? Okay, Vaults of Varn. This is really cool. I don't really know what to do with it, just other than looking at it in amazement. What's the Earth map? Click to open a map of Earth. Oh. So can we come down and check this area out? Or no? This is really neat. I really like the retro stylings. Lazule Mountains, Gulf of Varn, Noel. So how do I, does that let me click on it? Golgotha? No? Lazule Mountains? Oh, that's opening up. All right, okay. Wow. They got a whole bunch of stuff in here. The Lazule Mountains, the northern mountain range of Varn. Tall, new blue peaks, lattices of hard light in the sky overhead. The cobwebs, mountain-dwelling cackle maw, rock lizards, goat-herding fa, deep, silent cave systems, too far north, and you're in Golgotha. Okay. I can dig that. Go back here. This is really cool stuff. Well, I don't know what to do with it in terms of Varn because I don't know anything about Varn. Maybe I should get to know Varn. Just let me go back. Does let me go back to here. Just want to look at some of the other places. We do have some numbered locations. Desolate Fa Nomad Camp. That's that spot. I really wish they would. This is really cool. I would love to play with something like this just for that. Maybe I could fill in if they had some way to make this so it wasn't just for Varn, but that you could customize it for your own use. I think it'd be really cool. Really cool. As it is, if you're using Varn, this might be a great help to you. If you're not, let's see. Grave Slug says, music great, some Caves of Cud vibes. I can't even hear the music because I don't have my headphones on, so that's good to know. I didn't even know it had music, but I guess I should have seen it because I could see the little icon there. Hopefully it's not drowning out my vocals. I'm not singing my voice. Let's see. Ian Boyd says, is this a Dwarf Forces Let's Play channel now? I can make that happen, Ian. Do not tempt me, Ian. Graveslug also says, Varn is tight. You'd probably like it. Weird science fantasy setting. Cool. I will have to come back to Varn. But I put the link in there. Feel free to grab it. Enjoy it. Let me just see the comment. Oh, let me make sure to upvote. I'm just going to check out the comment just to see if they say anything else. I'm really happy with how this turned out. I'd love to hear people's thoughts on it. Varn is a great setting system. I'd love for more people to get into it. I'll upvote his comment as well. I'll have to come back to that because that does seem cool. And I would love to see this kind of, if there was a framework beneath that you could adapt. You could basically dwarf fortressize all kinds of stuff. That would be really neat. Okay, what are your favorite equipment lists and what makes an equipment list good? I don't know. Does anyone have a favorite equipment list? I don't know. I just want to have stuff on it. Stuff that people are going to use. It doesn't need to be crazy. I have a soft spot for those old Gygaxian lists that have 18 versions of polearm, even though most people can only recognize a couple of them, including myself. I always have to go back and remember, like, what's the difference between the Guisarme and the Bois Guisarme and the Guisarme Glaive or whatever, but they're fun. But the equipment lists, I think, are a subtle settings tool, because if you have all kinds of polearms, that seems to indicate that there are people out there using all these polearms, because elsewise, why would somebody be selling it? If people weren't buying 8 different varieties of polearm, then I presume that no one would be selling them. So that tells you something about the system. And of course, if you're selling throwing stars and caltrops and ninja claw climbing tools, then that kind of presumes that there are ninjas in your setting. So I do think that could be a way to be thoughtful, or it could be a thoughtful way of injecting a little bit of your setting sneaky with your players. Oh, if you're selling a lot of this stuff in the stores, kind of means maybe that's something that is important or factors into the culture. You can kind of have that be a way that culture drips through. If you go from one land to another land, maybe update the equipment list. Have an equipment list that's, okay, this is my whatever equipment list, and now you're in whatever B, and I want to make them very different, then reflect that in your equipment list. But I don't have a favorite one. Weird Fantasy Mega Dungeon zine called DNGN is live on Kickstarter. Great. Elder Erd, my new campaign. It's gotten upvoted. Let's check it out. Maybe it's got some cool stuff here. Oh. Well, I don't think there's going to be much here, unfortunately, but it's submitted by Aquerberent. I'm starting a new OD&D campaign. Here's the tagline for the rules. Red Book is the house rules of the Wilderness Fantasy Adventure campaign set in the Arnisonian Age of Elder Erd. The setting is along the lines of The Hobbit recast as a swords and sorcery story. The Necromancer is a dark sorcerer. Elves may provide aid, but are just as likely to enslave you. Dwarves are greedy opportunists. Smaug is a demon serpent from an Elder Age. You get the idea. More to come as I figure it out. Okay, well, I mean, that's cool. I'm down with it. I mean, it's not that far from The Hobbit already. Though, of course, in The Hobbit, the Necromancer is more of a threat. Nothing really directly happens, but Smaug is kind of a demon serpent from an Elder Age. But yeah, sure. Conan it up. Elder Erd. Slave Lord's Dark Dungeon map, posted by Horoscope Design. I think we've seen some. I think we looked at something else from that person, so we'll take a look at the map. It's a very small map. This is kind of, I guess this is more kind of battle map style. Almost seems like big enough to use a battle map. Can we zoom in here so we can see? Can we zoom in? Can I zoom in more to get the text? It's not big enough. Well, there's definitely a bunch of content there for the rooms, but I can't see it. Is there a link? A map painted over an A3 cardboard sheet for this adventure, which is, okay, Slave Lord's Dungeon. Hand-drawn, high-resolution, color printable A3 map. Okay. You know, something weird. Wait, I don't want to say weird. That's not the right word. But I think, so I don't know if folks remember, it's probably something that's still ongoing. Brian Smith, hey, Brian Smith, says, oh, we're talking about Guisarmes and Vecta Corbines? Yes, exactly, Brian Smith, always. There's I found, I wonder if this, I think this is true, as I'm stumbling over what to say. What I mean is that back in the day when the kind of app store was kind of new, this idea of, oh, we could sell these mobile apps and stuff, right? There was a whole problem because people were just undercutting each other with prices. So you ended up having this conception of 99 cents or $1 is basically the max anybody wanted to pay for anything, because everybody was trying to undercut and got to that 99 cent or $1 price point and was just, okay, here we're going to do it. So then somebody would come out with something amazing and they want to charge you $3, $4, $5 for it. and everyone's going like, I don't want to pay that because there's all these other things that are 99 cents. Why isn't yours 99 cents? Right. And it reduced the value of all the labor that people have put in. And I think a lot of that's been changed with the new subscription model, but that's whatever. That's neither here nor there. But I feel like the same thing is kind of true or has happened. Maybe folks in the chat, you guys can tell me if it's true or not, but that DM's Guild and just drive through and the existence of a lot of very cheap material has made it a kind of a hard sell at times for someone who wants to price things at what may legitimately be a much more reasonable level. So if you look at something like this, and here's a 1-page dungeon, it's a nice map. It's got some nice text, but it's $5. And you can go on a drive-through, you can find a whole RPG system, especially if you wait for a sale. That's $5. So someone look at that and go, well, that's cool, but that's not a $5 piece of business, even though doing all the work and everything you put in, if you paid someone a reasonable wage or just a basic, what does someone would charge per hour to draw and color and make a map like that, and then to however many cents per word to write out all the content, it probably is worth that. But I think it's I mean, it'd be interesting to talk to this person and see what if people are willing to pay that kind of money for stuff, which again, it's not unreasonable. It's a cup of coffee. You can, granted, if you go to the 99-cent menu, it's a couple of things at McDonald's or fast food or whatever, but at the same time, it's hard, right? And I'm curious, are people willing for independent creators who decide like, hey, I'm not going into that 99-cent craziness, and you go into DM's Guild or drive through and there's just untold billions of pieces of content out there that are all at that 99 cents, $1, $1.25. Here's someone making a much more reasonable, if they could manage to make sales, kind of able to provide themselves a living wage, but compared to all this stuff, it's kind of, you might look at it and say it's overpriced. So are people willing to do that? Because I would love if in the OSR people were like, you know what, this is quality. I understand someone's putting their heart and soul into this and a lot of time and a lot of things. So I want to pay them something that accurately reflects the amount of effort they're putting in. But a lot of folks also, I mean, look, there's so many people that say something like, oh, I'm just going to go pirate it because, and then if it's worth it, if I deem it to be worth it, I'll come back and pay. So I'm curious how that stuff works. Let me know. Oh, let's see. Brian Smith in the chat says, I think it breaks into two categories, basically free and professional grade for like $30. Not much in between, it seems. The pay what you want thing throws it all off too. Yes, this is true. And then Stochastic Agency says, when the preview actually show quality work, I'm more than willing to shell out the coin. And then Gravesluck says, like Brian Smith said above, you're pretty much fighting between free / 99-cent super awesome stuff or $30 hardbacks. Yeah. And that's just that's tough. Because it's, what do you do when stuff that's good and, but, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the answer, but I thought his pricing was interesting on the last one. We looked at that 1-page dungeon, which I think was pay what you want, but it was also $5 for this, 1-page piece. And I just wonder in the market is that, I mean, I hope they sell tons of them. Hope people buy it or, at least something, but it seems like it's an interesting thing to do. Terrence says, I bought the Walking Holiday thing that I looked at last week. It was really reasonable, $6 for the PDF. Yeah. Yep. There's that. I feel like there's definitely probably, I mean, that's kind of an interesting spot to be, right? It's sort of a mini rule book, maybe is $6 somewhere in there, maybe depending on the art or, layout, whatever. But it's hard to say. I don't have a ton of experience with that stuff from a creator publisher side yet. So I don't know if ultimately that is reasonable or if I still have a skewed version or vision of what's what in that regard. But it definitely strikes me as interesting. And I hope it's successful for this person because I think we should get back or get to this idea of, paying people for their work. And I don't think that for careers, people who, the 99-cent thing, yeah, sure. If you blow up, yeah, you can still do well, but you're waiting for, you need a tsunami of sales and anything that if you get a more reasonable drip of content then is not really profitable. You can't make something out of that. You have to kind of go for either it's a home run or I'm just going to keep throwing stuff against the wall. I don't know if that it rewards consistently putting in a lot of great work into it, unless that's just what you love. which I guess we hope everybody loves it, but still, it's a lot of work when you might have other things. So it's tough. Brian Smith says, throwing a few bucks at a decent PDF makes a lot of sense. I can see a company that produces content standardizing their own pricing. Like all our PDFs are $5, no matter the creator. I don't know. And then Stochastic says, right, 99 cents, right, minus drive-throughs cut. Exactly. So you're not even, that's not even the full thing you get. But it's that still that concept of, I'm just going to make it cheaper and then, whatever. So it just drives everything down. And then Brian Smith says, lots of content creators make smaller things available through Patreon and offer very low pricing for that. A bit easier than expecting people to purchase individual products. Yeah, that's another thing. I mean, there's a balance, right? You could do it as a Patreon, but then there's also people who don't want to get into another subscription model, which I totally get. Even though you might be getting stuff, right? You're getting billed every month, whether you pull stuff in or you don't. So having it as, hey, you can have it. I mean, maybe it's ideal you just have both. Hey, once I can finally get going, I have a Patreon and I love Patreon backers, and I am woefully under deliver on Patreon as far as terms of stuff. It's something I'm trying, part of my 2022 plan to kind of turn around. But one of the things I look at is maybe do something like, hey, $2 a month, and then maybe things individually would come out, and let's say if it was a one pager, $1 or something like that, or maybe say $3 a month, and kind of one pages are $2, and the bigger things are $5. But then if you decide to just pay $3 a month on the subscription, then you kind of get a better deal, something like that. There's probably ways to sort of figure it, but the space is kind of interesting, and everything is constantly changing, right? All right, what else do we have? Your favorite OSR and OSR agent adjacent solutions to poison strengths and varieties. I'm going to upvote that. I'll come back to it because I actually have one. I have my own one pager on poisons. It's up on drive-through. It's one of the few things that I've so far published on drive-through. I have my own thing where I tried to kind of do that in a very simple way, but I won't go over it here in the chat, but you can look at it, you can find it on there. I think it works pretty well. I have no idea if it's well reviewed or not, but it worked for my game, so I just threw it up there. Homebrew abilities for OSR play. This is probably going to be interesting. I hope. Let's see. Posted by Suitable Link 8084, or technically Suitable _Link _ 8084. I've given one of my players who plays a dwarf the ability to enter a drunk rage. We play old school essentials. For each pint of ale/wine he chugs before combat, he gains the following: 1 pint, tipsy, +1 damage, -1 AC, works for 2 turns. 2 pints, now they're drunk, +2 damage, -2 AC for 4 turns. And then 3 pints, they're completely faced, +3 damage, -3 AC, 6 turns. What do you think of this mechanic, and what homebrew abilities have you given players to spice up your game? I mean, this is basically kind of what it's an interesting way of doing power attack. So if I'm remembering correctly, power attack and sort of similar mechanics are you take a penalty to your attack bonus to get a similar bonus to hit. Sometimes it's flat. I think 5th edition has something similar. I forget what it's called, but you go, hey, I'm going to take a -10 to my attack, but I'm going to get +5 on my damage, something like that, or disadvantage on my attack, and then whatever adds on to the end of the damage. This is fine. It's tying it into being drunk. I would probably want the turns thing is interesting because I think we would all agree drunkenness lasts longer than 6 turns. 6 turns is just a minute. So you drink 3 pints and you're drunk for a minute, and then that wears off, because that doesn't make sense in terms of the fiction, because I assume that outside the combat, they're still going to be drunk. So, you drank 3 pints, and then the goblins bust in through the tavern doors. So now, you've got this thing for 6 turns. Well, what happens after 6 turns? Because if the combat's over, you're still going to be role-playing like you're drunk. The GM is going to probably be assuming you're drunk still. So why does it end there? So I might make it longer, but then have some other things. Right now it's just combat. And I would say, okay, well, this is what happens in combat. If we have something that dwarves, they're kind of getting more reckless as they're drunk, so they're just swinging harder. That's cool. And clearly they're not in their full frame of mind, so that makes their ability to kind of dodge, block, and do all things go down. That's fine. what happens to other abilities, what other ramifications are there, and give it a real time limit. Okay, if they're what is 1 pint, 2 pint, 3 pints, I would put it in terms of like exploration turns, like an hour, like how many hours, or maybe pint, three exploration turns, basically half an hour, maybe drunk 1 hour, 3 pints, 2 exploration turns, something like that. Terrence says maybe they mean exploration turns. I don't think so, because then 6 hours seems too much. 6 hours I feel like is too short. I think that 6 hours seems too long, and then 60 seconds seems too little. So I don't know. Brian Smith says, if you got so drunk you were raging in a bar brawl, definitely your drunkenness will last longer than is convenient. Yes, it should. And then Null Terminated. Hey, Null Terminated. It says, I like this if they're playing with encumbrance and inventory where they have a limit to using it. I mean, I guess if they are, I don't mind that if this would, I think Null Terminated, that's a good point. Assuming that they are doing that in a situation where they are literally bringing a little mini keg, they're bringing in the travel keg with them, then yeah, this definitely has a good thing. I just think maybe flesh it out a bit more. See what else we want to have affect it besides just combat. I really think, and OSR doesn't suffer this from too much, but I really think one of the things is that we want oftentimes as GMs that one of the things we pitch about the OSR is that because combat's so deadly, it's not all about combat. And a lot of times in other games, like, hey, or like, 5th edition, oh, we just don't, we want things to be more than combat. Then one of the things we can do as a GM to make things more than combat is to give abilities that aren't just combat related. So in this case, I would say I'm fine with what it's doing in terms of combat. At the same time, make it full flesh. Don't just make it a combat thing. Make it a fully fleshed thing. Find out kind of a reasonable idea. I'm fine even if you're gonna say with a dwarf that their drunkenness is shorter because they've got, their I don't know, their bodies and their just their amount of muscle mass or whatever would indicate that they can absorb more, whatever, just as a species, or even that no, they're super, for whatever reason, dwarves are super what's the word, vulnerable to the effects of alcohol. Either way, but just make it something that makes sense in combat, out of combat. Give them some different things across the board. Make it a kind of fully fleshed out sort of system, and not just like a combat thing. That would be my suggestion. Terrence says, after 10 drinks, save versus poison, not pass out and crap your pants. I would say save versus poison, and then if you fail by less than 5, you just pass out. If it's more than 5, you crap your pants and you pass out. Or maybe I would say more than 5, you piss yourself and pass out. More than 10, crap, piss, and you're passed out. And then Dungeon Master Masterclass suggests that dwarves may have ultra livers. Engage the ultra liver. Yeah, could be. Well, that's not bad. I'm curious if there's any. Okay, no one's really responded in here to talk about other homebrew abilities, but hey, there's that one. We are just trucking along. So far, everything good. Let me know in the chat, right? Because like I mentioned at the beginning, I'm using a different streaming service today as a test. So if audio, video, anything is off, I haven't noticed anything on my end that is amiss, but let me know if there's anything on your end that seems amiss. OSR for Warhammer. A lot of comments there, but I don't really know much about Warhammer, so I don't know non-dungeon mega dungeon locations. I mean, the mega dungeon really is just, you just want something huge that takes presumably weeks, months, years, potentially, or even infinite time to go through. So think about any kind of location that could be underground. Just makes sense because you have kind of, practical level. Obviously, planets ultimately have circumferences and diameters that if you would run against limits somewhere, but just on a local level, you go underground, you basically have as much ground as you could possibly ask for. If you're building it somewhere else, then it just gets trickier. But you could have a city you could set up a city as a mega dungeon, particularly if that city had levels, lots of towers and things with vertical levels up, and then of course could have vertical level underground as well, and then could spread out however much horizontally. A mega dungeon could be a whole island, depending on, it's really about just how you really want to define mega dungeon and then what kind of location you feel like has all that stuff that you can put in it. It's just underground is very easy because you could have an entrance to a mega dungeon anywhere. You're in town, look down the well. That's an entrance to a mega dungeon. Oh, look, here's an old church and there's a crypt. And, wait a minute, this one sarcophagus in the crypt. You look down, you open it up and there's stairs. That's a mega dungeon, right? Hey, this guy's house got a basement. That's the entrance to the mega dungeon, right? Because you can put it underground. You can be anywhere. If your mega dungeon is a giant tree, then that giant tree, you're going to see it for miles and miles and miles because it's a massively huge mega dungeon tree. So you can't really hide it unless you had a whole forest of massively mega dungeon trees. And then on the other side of the coin, it limits where you can put it, at least without some kind of explanation, which a lot of times mega dungeons don't really have. And you can get away with it because underground kind of also lends itself to that not really explainability part. Whereas, it's a desert and there's a mega dungeon below it, totally everyone's willing to buy into that. If there's a massive mega dungeon tree in the middle of the desert, you have to make a little bit more explanation. Can you? Sure. But it's just extra work, I guess. But put your mega dungeon wherever you want your mega dungeon and just make it fit. What's ultraviolet grasslands? I don't really know. I'll upvote that because I don't know, but I'm not going to cover it because I'm presuming most folks here in the chat are much more up on some of these things than I am. I'm the one running the stream, and yet I don't even know really what ultraviolet grasslands is. It's on my list of things to read, but I have not read it yet. Oh, here's something that might be interesting. An adjudication question. Jumping from the castle wall, or a castle wall. All right, let me get first a swig of watered down apple cider for the working man. Oh, let's see. Brian Smith says, I'm more of a mini dungeon kind of guy, not so into the mega dungeons. Yeah, I tend to like mini dungeons, but I think you can also look at a mega dungeon as a bunch of mini dungeons put together. And I do appreciate the idea of having different levels that you can kind of unlock. You can discover, there's more. The pyramid that's built on top of the older pyramid that's built on top of the older pyramid kind of thing. I do like that, but in my game, it tends to be more mini dungeons. The party is by the parapet of a castle wall. A player asks if there is a haystack or tent or something to break the fall if their character jumps. How would you adjudicate if something exists to break the fall? First, I would say that player has probably been playing Assassin's Creed that tends to have these really high points that you are supposed to jump off of, and there's always the cart with hay in it or something at the bottom to break your fall. That isn't usually something I think that would be there I don't usually think of castles as having something like that. Though sometimes you have stuff that's built up against the wall. I guess it depends. First of all, are you jumping outside or are you jumping inside, and where's the castle? If you have the kind of castle that's in the middle of a town, so you've got the castle and the sort of town or a village that's grown up around it, there may very well, maybe not be just, look, there's a hay pile, but there might be housing that's built up, some kind of roof that maybe comes up halfway. Some of that's probably going to depend on how disciplined you feel like the castle, the lord has to been keeping the walls clear, because you generally, as just a defensive measure, you would not want things to encroach too closely onto the walls, because you don't want enemies to use that stuff against you, especially if they are really permanent structures. If it's something you could knock down in a moment's notice, that's fine, because if the enemies are at the gates, you can just kill those structures. But if you have really permanent, say, really hefty wood structures or stone structures or bricks, and it's coming right up to the walls, that's usually a bad thing. But it might happen over time. Certainly happens with things like city walls. Your city keeps expanding, so the inner wall, the old walls, stuff tends to get built up right against it, and then but they're building a new wall to protect the old city, that kind of thing. So from that standpoint, maybe there's a building, something you can jump to. Ultimately, I'll just roll some dice. What are the chances? If you want to be more kind of Hollywood, Princess Bride, you're just kind of fun, yeah, throw the haystack beneath there. Darren says, aim for the moat. That's also if they've got a moat, definitely aim for the moat. I don't usually know how deep moats are. Would you think most moats are deep enough to break somebody's fall from your average castle wall height? I don't know, but that's definitely something. It might just be, can you get halfway down to a rooftop? And you can have fun with it and say, well, there's a building, but it's about 10 feet away from the wall. So now can you make that leap to get to the rooftop, or are you going to miss and fall in between? Terrence says, more Mott, less Bailey. Exactly. Figure out some. I mean, look, this is the great thing in the OSR, and not that you can't do this with non-OSR systems, but certainly in BX, it's pretty much explicit. When in doubt, just figure out there's no mechanic. You can look at it and you can say, okay, do I just want to make it a strength check? I mean, in this case, they're looking for, is there something there or not? So in this case, if we're going strictly by what they're saying, hey, I want to know what are the odds a tent or something is there to break the fall. So it's not. So we look at it and say, well, are we going to do this as an attribute check? No, because it's a question about the world. It's not a question about a character doing something. Then the fallback is, okay, would something like X and 6 count? And this is really about how fine you want to get with your probabilities. So you might say to yourself, there's a 33% chance. Then you can just roll, okay, I'm going to roll 1 and 2 and 6. Bam, done. You might say there's a 50% chance. Great, 3 and 6 chance. Done. You might say, I really think there's like a 10, 12% chance, whatever number. Then you can drop down. If it's evenly divisible by 5, you can use a d20, or you can just go right to your percentage dice, percentiles, and say, you know what? I think there's an 8% chance that there's something you can jump into, because you're looking at it and you're going, you know what? This kind of hay stack by the wall idea is kind of cheesy. I don't think they do that too much. And plus, you're at a specific portion of the wall. So we're not even talking about, is there one of these in any point of the wall? We're talking about in your little bit of the wall that you can see and deal with. Is there something here? I'm going to say 8% chance. Now, in my game, I would go to the player and say, look, you know what? This is they're pretty good about keeping the wall up to date. These guys are not punks. They're not usually jumping off the walls. And I don't know, the gate is nowhere near here. So who's just putting their wagon load of hay around? But I think an 8% chance is reasonable. And the players, at least in my game, tend to be pretty amenable and go, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And so I go, okay, 8% chance, roll the dice, or I'll roll the dice. And it was something like that where we've essentially established together what the percentage chance is. And I'll even say, okay, it was your idea to look, you roll. You get, roll a D100, and I'm using Discord. So Dice Maiden, tell Dice Maiden to roll a D100. If you get 8, or I usually for that stuff, I kind of like the higher numbers. So if you get 92 or above, but you could also do 0 to 8, whatever you want. If you get that 8% chance, something's there. If not, there's nothing there, and then move on. Now, nothing says, remember my crazy rant on the forum about how if you make up the history of your players won't see you will have these answers to these kinds of questions. And then Dungeon Master Masterclass correctly points out that we can't keep up with all those crazy rants. Yes, I think that, but I don't think you need to have a crazy thing, because I feel like I would just think about it from and say, yeah, there's an 8% chance. I'm sure if you have a history that says, oh, these guys were in the hay producing capital of the continent, so there are haystacks everywhere, then sure, go for it. It's how you get to the same place. But here's the thing that I feel for GMs, because I think a lot of GMs get caught up in these kinds of questions that really is dead simple, doesn't take really any time at all. And I think once you get in the flow of just not worrying about it and just going, hey, you know what? 10% chance. You could even come up with a flat rule and just say, you know what? 1 in 6. I would be totally fine with that too. If you don't know and I don't know, it's an open question. We're just going to roll a d6. If you get a 6 and this thing you asked for is there, if it's something that's too unusual, then we'll just say that doesn't follow, whatever. Like, you could even do that. But this is the thing I feel like a lot of GMs need to get comfortable with, is to figuring out how to do this stuff so it's not a half an hour game halting, trying to look up through various rules and just going, hey, you know what? Let's just 8%, 10%, whatever. We'll roll the dice. We'll figure it out. But it's not a bad question. I'm glad. It seems like folks are giving good answers. Where are we at on time? We're doing good. Oh, Terrence, haystack dice drop. Yep. There you go. Brian Smith says, map out all errant hex haystacks on my hex maps from now on. Absolutely. You're going to need to have a haystack symbol for where haystacks are. I really do think that that's probably a Assassin's Creed effect. Can I leap out with my arms outstretched and land in a conveniently placed haystack? Yes, you can. Is there a better organized version of AD&D second edition? Yes, I forget the name. Hopefully Terrence can shout out the name because he has sent me the link to it. I just don't remember it. Let's see, anyone ever did a Pokemon Shin Megami Tensei OSR? I'm not super interested in that, so no. Someone else looking for help with Ultraviolet Grasslands. I've already said I haven't read it yet. What do we got here? BPD Supervisor Observatory Map for a short Troika adventure. I guess we can take a look at this. Posted by Naiher a couple of days ago, who's got a Patreon. It looks nice. Let's see. It's supposed to be a forgotten observatory with amnesiac synth humans. Looks, I mean, it's cool looking. It has a really neat effect posted to it. The usability is kind of maybe not where I would want it if I wanted to use it, because I don't have any sense of the scale. Looks like there's two sets of kind of stairs, but one is really small. Or is this a road or here? And then this one's kind of huge and seems to lead to nowhere. So I don't know what's going on with this part here. Is it going to another floor? What's it doing? I guess if we look at these doorways, saying they're 5-foot doorways, then we have kind of the suggestion of what the scale is in terms of interior spaces. But I'd like to know that X there. Is that a trap? Is that an elevator? It's really cool because it has this photographic kind of negative, funky, grungy quality to it. But for Golden Glory, thank you. That's the AD&D 2E retro clone. Oh, Terrence says, going back to the haystacks, tell them they have to spend a fate point if they want to invoke a hay wagon. Absolutely. I would definitely do that. Kind of use an inspiration. You know, if you're using kind of an inspiration or fate point or some other sort of meta currency, I would definitely do is that would be exactly the usage. Oh, you want the hay cart? You want to make sure there's a hay cart there? Yeah. Throw me your inspiration coin, either metaphorically or physically, and then we can have your hay wagon. And Ian, nope, you were right. It was for Golden Glory. Oh, and Null Terminated says there is a second image with better usability. Oh, see, look at that. Ah, here we go. Yeah, this is better. I'd still like to know some scale and what the heck is going on at the top of this ramping thing. I guess maybe it's just the end. But because you have blank space, and I don't know if this is a observatory, so I want to say this is probably a ledge. So I'm guessing on the outside, this black is for some kind of ledge. Maybe we'll need to go back to the actual thing to see, but it's a cool map. This one's, I like this one just in terms of first one, or if you're reading or if you're listening to this, just in terms of just the aesthetic. But yeah, this one, I'd kind of like for this usability one to give me the squares, be a little bit more explicit with things. I presume maybe if you read the adventure, that stuff will make more sense. There was a comment. Somebody posted, I guess, something that they liked and then deleted their comment. Or they deleted their whole account. Okay. Burn filter is the filter they were going for. That's cool. That's cool. I can dig it. Good job, Naiher. Terrence asks, how many D6s of falling damage are mitigated if you hold a live chicken in each hand? That's a good question. That's a good, I mean, and then does it matter if you're, you know, a goblin or a halfling or a gnome? Maybe you need to size up to turkeys or something bigger if you're a medium-sized creature, or maybe a dwarf if they're heavier. Recommendations for generating PC relationships. I don't know why they put that in quotes, but PC quote-unquote relationships during character creation. Gotten a bunch of upvotes. Let me upvote that map. Remember, let's upvote this one. Get in there. And looking for it. I don't think I have a really good... I want to say Worlds Without Number had some kind of mapping of how you could do relationships to each other. I feel like you could just use Fate. You could kind of use any tool, unless they don't want to do it. I know in systems like Fate, when you're doing relationships, it's not generated via dice. It's generated negotiations, talking, RPing between players. The question itself, posted by Jarviez, says, I'm looking for a preferably system neutral and ideally simple mechanic or game procedure to encourage the players to create simple interrelationships between their characters during the character creation process. That was a mouthful. I'm looking for a mechanic that will give players an excuse to explain, without pages of backstory, why they are adventuring together, what their shared and or secret/conflicting motivations might be. I think something that takes the form of a mini game during character creation would be best. Any recommendations? Well, I don't have anybody specifically, but it's not a bad system. Terrence says, never try that with geese as far as the grabbing some birds to try to chop down with. Yeah, geese are mean. They'd push you over the ledge. They would just bite you, kill themselves with you to spite you. On the question in hand about relationships, Brian Smith says, I like the prompts from the Fate system. Yep, I think they work well. I think that someone's looking for something more gamey, more maybe rolling some dice. I kind of, is that the sense I have, but I'm not exactly sure. Null Terminated said, Fiasco is a fun way to generate relationships with others given the appropriate playset. Oh, I haven't really looked at Fiasco much in forever, so that's not a bad idea. And then Brian Smith says, I've had a good time with things that are basically group Mad Lib type things, filling out some info and handing it to the next player. Yeah, I like that too. Kind of the starting a story. Oh, I met you when we were both prisoners of the Mad King Gizbo. And then the next person takes it and then says something and go around. That stuff is really fun also. And kind of lighthearted. Not everything, I kind of think in the OSR space we get so caught up in having to make tables and generators for everything, but not everything has to be a generator. And I think for something like a relationship, I mean, obviously you have generators that can give you just very basic prompts or very open-ended prompts, which I think is better suited for this because I want players to be happy. I mean, sometimes it's great just being handed something. Oh, hey, this is your best friend over here, and the guy on your right was a bully when you guys were both in seminary when you thought you were going to become a monk before you ran away, something like that. That can be fine sometimes, but I want those relations to be things that are workable, that the players are going to enjoy or appreciate, and definitely not something that's going to make them not want to play or make them or do things that they're going to want to ignore or not participate in because they're annoying or just not something they like. So I'm definitely, I think that in this kind of case, give them some control, give them something that whatever system gives them some latitude to pick things that they're comfortable with. Ian says geese add 1d6 of falling damage per goose held. Now see that now you're ending up with geese. It's some kind of torture, like the what was the thing called where they flay you alive, and then there's going to be someone's going to create the kingdom that the worst punishment is being dropped from the tower with 8 geese strapped to each arm. That would be good. Dungeon Master Masterclass says, I'd say just ask the players the questions you want answers to. You don't need a mechanic. Yep, I agree with that. Video is frozen. Oh, it's showing that. Yeah, let me start the video. There we go. Am I back? Cool. I hope that's actually kind of an improvement on Restream, because I wonder if that's why if my camera kind of does something futzy, Restream explodes. But this at least just killed the camera, which might be good. The Metal Gear Solid effects. Yeah, Snake. Snake, are you there? Snake. Yeah, I'm back. I'm back. Brian Smith also says, some players are reactionary, especially in character creation, and it can help to get them going if you give them some piece of lore, whatever, they can take it or leave it. Yeah, totally. But yeah, I just think giving them choices is good. So if you were going to pick a generator, Jarviez, or anybody, pick a generator that gives prompts and maybe even give them some options like a this or that or the other. Or yeah, if you have some idea. The other thing too is if your player has an idea what they want to do, just let them do it. I think if you're doing some kind of pickup one shot and you just want it to be fun, then rolling on some generators and just throwing people together. Or you could, it's also something if you're playing in person, you could do a lot with giving people cards, write up some different relationships on cards, maybe even make them a little funky, especially if you're playing a more kind of gonzo funky system like say Troika or Into the Odd. Shuffle them up, deal them out. They could even have some funny prompts on it like player to your right is, your best friend, player to your left is your enemy, and someone else gets one. Player to your right is an older family member. Player to your left is an ex-love interest, or whatever. Just have fun with them, but just give players the freedom, because especially if it's going to be a really you hope it's an ongoing game that goes on for a while, you don't want them to start with having a bad taste in their mouth about something that could be very central, as in their relationships. Brian Smith says, learn to do tarot cards, conduct a seance, literally call spirit forth and have it possess the player. Boom, character created. Absolutely. By the way, I had my tarot read the other day. That was fun. Her success rate on stuff was not super good. It was kind of a group thing. So at this conference I was at, this off site as they call it, they had all of us. They got a psychic as kind of a treat, and we all got to go through and have our tarot cards read by this small elderly lady. He was very nice. And I think some people found their readings were better than others. My reading was not particularly accurate in terms of what she was trying to guess about my present or my past. And I think she kind of sensed that, because my reading wasn't as long as some other ones, where I kind of think that when she felt like she was on the right path, she was kind of getting traction, she kind of get on into it more. With me, I wasn't giving her a whole lot, and she was asking me stuff. Oh, does this, I think one of them was, oh, has somebody close to you passed in the last 6 months? And, I know, and I've been lucky, knock on wood, haven't had anybody really kind of what I would consider close to me pass in the near history. So there wasn't even like, well, 8 months ago. It was like, no, really nothing. But I did apparently get the world upright as my future card, and she said that was really good. All kinds of success, and it's everything is great. So let me know if she was totally lying to me about what the world means in terms of this kind of future state. She did kind of I don't know if it was a Celtic cross. I forget. I used to know a little bit about tarot ages ago. I've kind of forgotten most of it. But anyway, I got a really positive future state card. So I hope if she's right about one thing and one thing only, it's that. That was fun. Terrence says maybe the psychic was getting my campaign notes. That's true. We've had some hirelings in the home game have passed, so maybe that's what she meant. Pour some out for the first level magic user hireling and the torchbearer who died. Maybe that's what she meant. That torchbearer, he was near and dear to my heart. So yeah, that could have been it. All right, what are we looking at on time? Let's see. We've got a few minutes left. This is a how-to from Rover Buff. It's a question, though. Can we please? I've asked this before, just for me. Don't do it for yourself, Redditors. Don't do it because it makes things easier. Do it for me and the fact that I have to come in here and pick out stuff on the stream. I can't tell from this title if someone's asking for something and tagged it how-to because they're asking for a how-to, or if they're here to give us a how-to. I don't know that I have necessarily great things to offer, but I'd like to know someone's procedures if they feel that they're good enough, they want to share them. So I'm going to go in there and update it, but it's a question. I just don't know. If it's a question, I'm not sure why it's tagged with how-to. I always think of how-tos. Those are when they're actually giving you a how-to. This person is a question, which I guess makes sense because it is as a question in his title, but then I don't know why you're calling it a how-to. Please be accurate. Help me out. I will read this because maybe we'll get some good comments, and I'm interested to see what you guys think about it. You folks. Posted by Rover Buff. Hello all. For a while now, I've been busy creating my own monsters for my BX Hexcrawl campaign, and I've started to think about two aspects: saving throws and attack bonuses, using ascending armor class rules as per OSE. Okay, it's probably not relevant, so it doesn't matter, but fine. Namely, I can't really figure out the structure as to how the saving throws or attack bonus of a monster should be determined, and if there's even a true system to it. I've read about concepts such as attack bonus being equal to HD, and that saving throw should be as if the monster was of a class with a level equal to their HT, and to half that level for unintelligent creatures, and make it higher for intelligent/magical creatures. But it seems like most BX monsters don't really follow such rules to a T, and are mostly designed with a free hand as far as I can see. Can't really find anything on it in the rules encyclopedia, or rules, not encyclopedia, but rules encyclopedia for BECMI, aka BECMI, either. My question basically comes down to this: was the method as to how BX monsters worked out ever discovered, or is there no method? I just wish to know if I am missing a step in my design process, or if designing each creature completely by hand is just the one and only way. So I don't know. Where's my BX book? I don't think I have it handy. Pretty sure I don't, unfortunately. I don't recall. I always just have been basically using fighter of the same level, essentially. So if it's a 2 HD monster, I'll just go grab what the fighter saving throws are. I think they'll say on the monster, right? As fight. Sometimes they'll say as cleric, as fighter, as whatever. I just tend to just go with the fighter. I don't think it matters ultimately. I mean, I think if you want to come up with specific, you don't want to look up to another table in the middle of your game, and you want to come up with specific numbers, go with a guide. You could probably figure something out. I don't know. I don't remember. You could probably remember, okay, fighters are going to be better at these saves, worse at those, and this, that, and the others. So you could probably even come with a template like, oh, I want to make it, if you think about it, something that's physically resistant, that's probably the fighter, or say dwarf saving throws. Oh, these are kind of magic-y ones. Well, then use magic user. Okay, these are kind of in the middle. Maybe use cleric, and just go that. Like, I don't think it's enough. I guess you want to be super precise, and you're looking at these trying to drill down. I suppose maybe there isn't. I'll be curious to see what some of the answers here give, but just go with something, because in the moment, I don't know. You're going to be okay. It's 1 point one way or another. Okay, well, the fighter one is 14, and it should have been 15, or it should have been 13. Okay. I don't know. It doesn't seem to me to be not something I really spend much time wondering about. Werg 5 year 5, I don't even know what his name. WRG 5Y 5YE Y 5E6. I have no idea what that's supposed to be. Probably is meaningful to them, hopefully. Back to the tarot. No, nothing says, wait, the tarot card reader didn't do well when you didn't give her a lot of feedback. Shocked. Yes. Yep. Indeed. I mean, I've read a lot of books on flim-flam artists, confidence schemes, the psychics who are not honest, all that stuff. But I tried to go in with an open mind. I didn't try to be specifically Stonewall, but I wasn't giving like a ton of feedback, which people usually do. Like if someone said, oh, did you have an uncle or someone named John? Oh, James. Like, I didn't know that. She didn't ask any questions like that, but it's really a fascinating subject because there's all kinds of statistics that you can become acquainted with, where you can use them to kind of to seem prescient to people, like names like John, or starts with the letter J for names, because a lot of the most common names over time in the English language for men, I don't know for women, like I don't know, or J, John, James, Jeff, those kind of things. So if you say, oh, do you have a male ancestor whose name starts with the letter J, you're going to get a lot of right answers. So if you do that, someone's like, oh my gosh, they really knew something. No, you're playing the odds. And there's something too, like the most common number on someone's house, at least in the States, is the number 2. So if you say like, oh, I see a number on your house, and oh, I think it's the number 2, you're likely to catch a lot of people because there tends to be 2s. That's just something statistically known. Like the most common color of your car, I believe, at least used to be blue. So you can do all these things and you start rattling them off, and you get a few of them, and then you try to pull out more information when someone's like, oh no, it's not Jerry, but their name's Harry. Oh, okay. And that can kind of tell you stuff. There's a lot of ways that you can, and I'm not saying people are trying to be dishonest or be shysters, but if someone wanted to be, a lot of tools there. And I've read a lot of this stuff. I've been fascinated with stuff for a long time. So I'm sure I went in there and my body language and everything wasn't giving her a whole lot. Even if I really was trying to go in there and just be like, I'm just going to do this as kind of a fun thing. I'm not going to try to James Randi, if you're familiar with, he passed away, I think last year. Rest in peace, James Randi. But I wasn't trying to do that. But, wasn't trying to open up and give everything either. Hey, Dave Mills, I'm on the last thing, but you came in just in time. So the person, WRG 5Y, 5YE, 5Y, 5E6, corrects the original poster about attack bonus being equal to HD, and he gives a link to a table. And then also quoting about saving throw, says that OSC obscured the very simple rules for saving throws by giving you the numbers for each entry, making them look arbitrary. Look instead for the last number in parentheses, which tells you the level. E.g., an ogre saves as a 4th level fighter, the default where the class is not specified. Yep, that's pretty much what I do. I'll just take fighters unless they say something otherwise. Reverse engineering the monsters from Beckme. aka BECMI, which are for the most part a superset of the monsters from BX and hence OSE. The unwritten rules for saving throws are, let me give this guy an upvote as I'm reading because he's got some good stuff. Most monsters save as fighters, except where it's rather obvious that they should save as something else, e.g. pixies and sprites save as elves, and gnomes save as dwarves. Most monsters save at level equals HD with the following exceptions. Most animal intelligence monsters save as half their HD. So a 9 HD elephant saves as a 4th or 5th level fighter. And then second, many magical creatures save as twice, not 150% of their HD. E.g. a unicorn has 4 HD but saves as an 8th level fighter. Oh, that's interesting. Terrence. Oh, Ian, thanks for joining. Glad you hung out. Cheers. Have a great weekend. Terrence says, I got a pic with James Randi at Dragon Con. Oh, really cool. Yeah, he did seem like a really cool guy. I'm sorry I was never able to interface with him in any way before he passed, but he'd been around for a long, he was in his, I think, mid to late 90s when he passed. So he had a full life. And then Rover Buff says, awesome breakdown. That was a good breakdown. I'll give you an upvote for your doing that. I think most people are giving basically similar answers, but that was the best one. And since we're right at the hour, I think I will close it off here. So I will say that as an initial stream with Melon, as opposed to restream, I think this went pretty well. I am happy with it. Let me know. I know there was the camera kind of got killed for a few minutes there, but I appreciate that it killed my camera and not the whole stream. So I feel like if that's what the fail states are going to be like with Melon, that's preferable to everything kind of crashing and burning. We'll see if it's something, I'll try this for a while. We'll see if it's something that recurs really often, in which case maybe there's something wrong if my camera's crashing all the time. But if this will then replace the times when I boot in and everything just goes wonky, I'm happy about that. Let's say I was able to read the chat and do that. Everything worked well. Didn't see anything fluky with anything. Sound like no one was complaining about my audio levels or anything like that. So it's all good. As I mentioned up top, I will probably be off for President's Day, take the day off, do some family stuff. If we do end up just inclement weather or whatever happens and we're just at home, I will post and I will stream. And then I will also be going a week from today, going off on a vacation. I'm pretty sure we're leaving at the beginning of the day, so no time to stream. Depending on what internet's like, maybe I'll throw up some small videos, just some kind of fun, like, hey, look at me kind of thing. But probably expect kind of radio/video silence from me. If I have a chance, which I probably won't, to queue up some videos to drop while I'm gone, I will do that, but probably not. We will see. That's all I've got, everybody. Have a great weekend, or whenever you end up watching or listening to this. Game on. And I'll talk to you later.